Society has a habit of looking at an older man who prefers staying at home and immediately assuming something is wrong. They see a quiet lifestyle and call it loneliness. They notice he no longer attends every gathering, every celebration, or every social event, and they conclude that age has somehow stolen his happiness. Friends encourage him to get out more. Family members worry that he's becoming isolated. But what if they've completely misunderstood what's really happening? The truth is far more fascinating than most people realize. Many senior men don't stay home because they've given up on life. They stay home because they finally learned what gives life genuine meaning. After decades of chasing careers, meeting expectations, solving other people's problems, and constantly proving themselves to the world, something begins to change. Their priorities shift. The noise that once felt exciting gradually becomes exhausting, while the peace they once overlooked becomes incredibly valuable. This isn't about fear, it isn't about depression, and it certainly isn't about losing the desire to live. It's about reaching a stage of life where peace becomes more attractive than constant activity. The mature masculine mind begins to value quality over quantity, depth over distraction, and authenticity over appearances. What looks like withdrawal from the outside may actually be the beginning of inner freedom. In today's video, we're going to explore the hidden psychology behind why so many men over 60 genuinely enjoy staying at home. We'll uncover 7 powerful psychological reasons that explain this transformation and why what many people mistake for isolation is often one of the greatest signs of emotional maturity. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. Do you enjoy spending more time at home now than you did when you were younger? Let's begin with the first reason. The first reason is something that most people completely misunderstand. Choosing solitude is not the same as suffering from loneliness. Those two things are often treated as if they mean the same, but psychologically, they're worlds apart. A senior man who enjoys spending time alone isn't necessarily disconnected from life. In many cases, he's finally become comfortable with himself. After decades of navigating success and failure, raising a family, building a career, and facing disappointments that few people ever see, he reaches a point where silence no longer feels uncomfortable. Instead, it feels like home. Think about how many younger men constantly keep themselves busy. If they're not working, they're scrolling through their phones. If they're not online, they're looking for another event, another conversation, another distraction. For many people, being alone with their thoughts feels unsettling because it forces them to confront emotions they've spent years avoiding. But something remarkable happens with many older men. Life teaches lessons that no book ever can. They begin making peace with old regrets. They stop replaying every mistake they ever made. They learn to forgive themselves for opportunities they missed and decisions they wish they could change. Little by little, the internal conflict begins to quiet down. That's why sitting alone in a peaceful home doesn't feel empty to them. It feels restorative. The outside world often mistakes this quiet lifestyle for sadness because many people can't imagine enjoying their own company. They're projecting their own fear of silence onto someone who has learned to embrace it. The senior man isn't escaping from life. He's enjoying the rare privilege of no longer needing constant noise to feel complete. There's another reason so many older men find comfort within the walls of their own home, and it has nothing to do with losing interest in people. It has everything to do with becoming more selective about where their energy goes. When you're young, you often believe every invitation deserves a yes. You attend gatherings you don't really enjoy, spend hours in conversations that go nowhere, and tolerate relationships that leave you emotionally drained simply because that's what everyone expects. For years, many men keep showing up, not because they want to, but because they feel obligated. Eventually, something changes. A man begins to realize that his time is no longer unlimited. Every afternoon, every weekend, and every meaningful conversation becomes more valuable than it once was. He stops measuring life by how many places he visits and starts measuring it by how peaceful he feels when the day is over. That shift changes everything. Suddenly, noisy environments music lose their appeal. Endless small talk becomes exhausting instead of entertaining. Gossip, unnecessary conflict, and superficial conversations no longer feel worth the emotional investment. He's not rejecting people because he dislikes them. He's simply choosing not to spend his remaining years on interactions that add little value to his life. His home becomes a place where he doesn't have to pretend. There are no social masks to wear, no expectations to satisfy, and no pressure to impress anyone. Instead, he can enjoy a good book, tend to his garden, listen to music, or simply sit in complete silence without feeling that he should be somewhere else. To people watching from the outside, it may appear that he's withdrawing from life. In reality, he's withdrawing from unnecessary noise, so he can invest more deeply in the things that truly matter. He's not choosing isolation, he's choosing peace. And for many senior men, that's one of the greatest freedoms they've ever experienced. The third reason many senior men enjoy staying at home is something few people ever consider. Home is the one place where they no longer have to perform. For most of a man's adult life, he's expected to play a series of roles. At work, he must be dependable. Around friends, he must appear confident. Within his family, he's often expected to solve problems, remain calm under pressure, and carry responsibilities without complaint. Whether anyone says it out loud or not, the world constantly asks him to prove his value. That kind of pressure doesn't disappear overnight. It follows him for decades. Eventually, however, retirement arrives. The children become adults. Career ambitions begin to fade into the background, and something remarkable happens. For the first time in many years, he no longer feels the need to wake up each morning trying to meet everyone else's expectations. His home becomes more than just a building. It becomes a place where titles no longer matter. Inside those walls, he isn't judged by his income, his profession, or the achievements listed on a resume. He doesn't have to compete with anyone, impress anyone, or constantly demonstrate his usefulness. He can simply exist without feeling the need to justify his presence. That freedom is incredibly powerful. Many people mistakenly believe staying home means a man has become less ambitious. In reality, many senior men have simply reached a stage where they no longer define themselves by what they produce, but by who they are. They discover that their worth was never tied to endless productivity in the first place. So, when an older man chooses the comfort of his own home over another crowded event, he isn't escaping responsibility. He's embracing authenticity. After spending much of his life fulfilling roles that society assigned to him, he's finally allowing himself to live without wearing emotional armor every single day. And for many men, that feeling is one of the greatest rewards that later life has to offer. The fourth reason senior men enjoy staying at home is that it gives them something the outside world rarely can: the space to think deeply about life. When you're younger, life moves at an incredible pace. You're focused on deadlines, paying bills, raising children, building a career, and solving one challenge after another. Days become weeks, weeks become years, and before you realize it, you've spent decades moving from one responsibility to the next without ever slowing down long enough to ask yourself the bigger questions. Later in life, that urgency begins to fade. For many older men, staying home creates the quiet environment they need to reflect on the journey they've already traveled. They think about the decisions that shaped their lives, the lessons they learned through hardship, and the moments they wish they had appreciated more. Instead of constantly looking ahead, they begin to understand the value of looking within. This isn't about living in the past, it's about making peace with it. Without the endless distractions of traffic, crowded schedules, and constant social demands, the mind finally has room to breathe. In that silence, many senior men discover a level of clarity they never experienced during their busiest years. They begin to understand what truly mattered, what didn't, and what kind of legacy they hope to leave behind. Their home becomes more than a comfortable place to live. It becomes a place where gratitude grows, wisdom deepens, and perspective becomes clear with each passing year. The quiet isn't empty. It gives their thoughts the freedom to settle. What others mistake for inactivity is often one of the most meaningful periods of a man's life. While the outside world continues rushing from one distraction to another, he's using the peace of his own home to strengthen his mind, reflect on his purpose, and appreciate the life he spent decades building. The fifth reason many senior men enjoy staying at home is one that outsiders often underestimate. Home gives them the freedom to rediscover their creativity. When a man is in the middle of his working years, most of his mental energy is directed toward responsibilities. He solves problems at work, meets deadlines, provides for his family, and spends countless hours helping other people achieve shared goals. By the end of the day, there is often very little energy left for the things he genuinely enjoys. Retirement changes that. For the first time in decades, his time belongs to him again. Suddenly, he can spend an afternoon building something in the workshop, caring for a garden, reading history, writing down memories, restoring old furniture, or learning a skill he never had the opportunity to explore. To someone passing by, these activities may seem ordinary. They might even assume he's simply trying to fill the hours. But that's far from the truth. These moments become expressions of freedom. He isn't creating to impress anyone or earn recognition. He isn't looking for applause, promotions, or financial rewards. He creates because the process itself brings satisfaction. Every project, no matter how small, reminds him that life isn't measured only by productivity. It can also be measured by curiosity, craftsmanship, and the simple joy of making something with his own hands. His home becomes more than a place of rest. It becomes a workshop for the mind, a studio for new ideas, and a space where imagination can flourish without deadlines or expectations. After years of using his abilities to meet the demands of the world, he's finally able to use them for himself. That's why so many older men find deep fulfillment within the quiet walls of their own home. They're not passing time, they're reclaiming a part of themselves that life once forced them to set aside. The sixth reason many senior men enjoy staying at home is something that becomes increasingly valuable with age. Home gives them complete control over their environment. When you step outside your front door, you immediately surrender a certain amount of control. You deal with traffic, crowded stores, loud restaurants, long lines, unexpected delays, and people whose attitudes can affect your mood without warning. Even a simple trip can become mentally draining because so much of your day depends on circumstances you can't control. After decades of living in that unpredictable world, many older men begin to appreciate something they once overlooked: the quiet stability of home. Within their own space, they decide how the day unfolds. They choose when to wake up, what music to listen to, whether they want complete silence or a favorite television program playing in the background. They can enjoy a peaceful morning with a cup of coffee, read without interruption, or simply sit by a window and watch the day pass without feeling rushed. More importantly, they decide who has access to their peace. As people grow older, they often become far more protective of their emotional energy. They no longer feel obligated to entertain unnecessary drama, endless complaints, or relationships that consistently leave them feeling exhausted. Their home becomes a place where calm is protected rather than constantly disturbed. This isn't about shutting people out, it's about recognizing that peace has become one of life's greatest treasures. A senior man understands that his energy is limited, and he wants to spend it on people and experiences that genuinely enrich his life. His home allows him to create an atmosphere that reflects those priorities. It becomes a place where his mind can relax, his body can recover, and his spirit can remain undisturbed by the constant demands of the outside world. For him, staying home isn't about avoiding life. It's about protecting the quality of the life he has worked so hard to build. The seventh and final reason many senior men love staying at home is perhaps the most misunderstood of them all. They have learned the difference between loneliness and solitude. Those words are often used as if they mean the same thing, but they describe two completely different experiences. Loneliness is the painful feeling of being emotionally disconnected, even when you're surrounded by people. Solitude, on the other hand, is the peaceful decision to spend time with yourself because your own company is enough. That distinction changes everything. Many people have experienced the strange emptiness of sitting in a crowded room while feeling completely unseen. They've attended family gatherings where no meaningful conversation took place, worked alongside dozens of colleagues without forming genuine connections, or spent years in relationships where they still felt emotionally alone. The senior man understands this reality better than most. He knows that simply being around people doesn't automatically create happiness. What matters is the quality of the connection, not the number of people in the room. That's why he no longer fears an empty house. To him, silence isn't something that needs to be filled, it's something to be appreciated. His home becomes a sanctuary where he can think clearly, enjoy simple routines, and experience contentment without depending on constant entertainment or social validation. He has reached a stage where his happiness no longer rises and falls based on invitations, crowded calendars, or the opinions of other people. This is the freedom that so many people misunderstand. They assume he's isolated because they imagine they would feel lonely in the same situation, but they're judging his life through their own fears instead of his reality. The senior man stays home not because he has withdrawn from the world, but because he has finally discovered that peace begins within. Once a man becomes comfortable in his own company, he no longer needs constant noise to remind him that his life has meaning. By now, you may have noticed that every reason we've discussed points toward one powerful truth. The older man who enjoys staying at home isn't shrinking his world, he's refining it. When he was younger, life demanded constant movement. There were careers to build, bills to pay, children to raise, and responsibilities that rarely left room for rest. Much of his time belonged to other people. His schedule was filled with obligations, and his value was often measured by how much he could produce or provide. But later in life, that perspective begins to change. He realizes that time has become his most precious possession. Unlike money, it cannot be earned back. Every hour spent in unnecessary conflict, meaningless conversation, or exhausting social expectations is an hour he'll never recover. That realization transforms the way he chooses to live. Instead of asking, "How can I stay busier?" he begins asking, "What truly deserves my time?" That single question reshapes his entire lifestyle. He chooses meaningful conversations over endless chatter. He values a peaceful afternoon over a crowded schedule. He discovers that fulfillment doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from finally having the freedom to do less and doing it intentionally. Many people struggle to understand this because modern society often celebrates busyness as if it's proof of a successful life. An older man knows better. Experience has taught him that a full calendar doesn't always create a full heart. So, when he spends another quiet evening at home, he's not watching life passing by. He's living it exactly the way he chooses. After decades of meeting the world's expectations, he's finally reached a stage where he no longer feels the need to impress anyone. His greatest luxury isn't excitement, it's peace. And he's learned that peace is something worth protecting every single day. As we come to the end of this discussion, it's worth remembering one important thing. Not every older man who enjoys staying at home is the same. Some still love traveling. Some enjoy meeting friends every weekend. Others find happiness volunteering, exploring new places, or spending time with family. There is no single way to grow older well. But for many senior men, home eventually becomes something much deeper than a place to sleep. It becomes a place where they have earned the right to live life on their own terms. After decades of responsibilities, expectations, deadlines, and constant pressure, they finally discover that fulfillment isn't found in always doing more. It's found in protecting the peace they've worked a lifetime to create. They no longer feel the need to chase every invitation, attend every gathering, or prove their worth through endless activity. They've learned that a meaningful life isn't measured by how often you leave your house, but by how much peace you carry within it. So the next time you see an older man who genuinely enjoys the quiet comfort of his own home, don't be too quick to feel sorry for him. He may not be lonely at all. He may simply have discovered something that many people spend their entire lives searching for: a life free from unnecessary noise, unnecessary pressure, and unnecessary expectations. What appears to be an ordinary home may actually be his sanctuary, his place of reflection, and the environment where he feels most like himself. If you're a senior man who has found joy in the peace of staying at home, I'd love to hear from you. Share your experience in the comments below. Your story may encourage another man to stop feeling guilty for choosing peace over pressure. If you enjoyed today's video, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another discussion on the psychology of aging, purpose, and personal growth. Once again, thank you for watching. Until next time, protect your peace, value your time, and never underestimate the quiet strength that comes from being completely at home with yourself.